Money makes the world go round, doesn't it? It's kind of frustrating, but I think we gotta go out there and make yet another commentary on the man, the myth, the legend, the longest tenured Vancouver Canuck at the moment, Brock Boeser. Because earlier this morning, there was a tweet posted by Taj that I liked a lot, and I wanted to dive into it here. Just kind of go over the perspectives, go over the unfortunate parts about this conversation. Because Taj tweeted this out 7 hours ago. People can debate Brock Boeser the player, and if he deserves what he's asking for all they want. But there's no debate about Brock the person. The Canucks will lose a first-class person that's beloved by his teammates. He didn't deserve to be treated like crap, even if they didn't want him back. Now, this is a really divisive tweet, you can say. A bunch of folks in the replies and the quote tweets are asking, why don't the Canucks want him back? Did they really treat him like crap and this and that and the other? And I think this plays hand in hand with the conversation we had yesterday about Brock Boeser speaking out about what could have been his last Vancouver Canucks game, where he said that he doesn't want to think about it as if it's his last game, where he hinted that maybe a contract is possible. He wasn't closing the door on it entirely. I know some fans saw all of those comments and debated amongst themselves, does this mean that Brock Boeser is willing to sign a team-friendly deal with the Canucks? And I don't think so. I don't think that's really in the cards here. It seems like the biggest part of the negotiations that was never able to fix itself was the term. Brock wanted longer term. The Canucks did not want to give it to him. Simple as that. Now, we can also get into the entire aspect of the Canucks treating him like crap and not really wanting him back. We had said this in the last video, but for some reason, it's kind of weird. Brock Boeser has never really been so adamantly praised by Canucks management in the same ways that other players have been. And a lot of that is exemplified to the most extreme capacity with what happened last year, where Brock had 40 goals on the year. He was the first Canucks player to have 40 goals in a season since Daniel Sedin and Ryan Kessler did it in 2010-2011. And the response from Patrick Allvin was, you could have got 50. It's never good enough. It's always, you can do more. You were not the best you could be. And while that's not incorrect, the fact that Brock Boeser was also not subjected to any immediate contract signing, where Drew O'Connor, Kevin Lankinen, Marcus Petey, they were all given contracts right away. Brock wasn't able to sign a deal early like those other three. It just seemed more like Vancouver management didn't really value the game that Brock Boeser gave in comparison to the value that they placed in other guys like JT Miller or Drew O'Connor, Marcus Petey, any of the former Penguins that they were able to acquire over the years. Of course, Brock Boeser is a more valuable and better player than what Teddy Bluger is, for example, or what a Daniel Sprong was, but just knowing what Vancouver's perception is about Brock whenever they talk about him, it does kind of get you intrigued as to whether or not this was a guy they really wanted to fight tooth and nail for to keep around. It seems more so like, hey, the Canucks gave him this offer, $8 million a year by 5 years. He said no, and it was like, okay, we're not going to try negotiating too hard after that. And Brock's not even talking to his agent, so it's not like, I can just tell the agent I'm okay to take a cheap deal. I want to stay here. I don't care how much money I get or how few years I get. I just want to stay. That conversation doesn't really seem to be there. And look, it could very well be Brock's preference that he wants to stay 8 years in Vancouver, and that is the biggest holdup as to why this is not getting done. He can get 7 years and maybe 8.5 elsewhere. That would not be unreasonable for today's NHL money market. But the thing is, with Vancouver losing out on a guy like this, firstly, it's irresponsible the fact they're losing him out for free. Because it's not like the Canucks were a super hot playoff contender at the trade deadline. They were already projected to sort of missing the playoffs at that point anyway. And this, of course, reopens that philosophical debate as to whether or not it would have been worth it for Vancouver to trade Brock, send that message to the rest of the team that, yeah, we're not going to make the playoffs, and then get some assets, get some younger guys, or do you want to just keep Brock, still remain competitive, and still have that idea that you're fighting for the postseason, even though it wasn't really likely at that point? Brock sticking around with the Canucks and not getting traded for anything, walking away for free, is just a total waste of an asset from the Vancouver Canucks management point of view. The question you have to ask yourself is, was it really worth it for this management core to not utilize that value into a longer-term piece? Because from the way they went about it, it does seem like they're more focused on the now. They wanted to allocate that Brock Boeser value into the next few weeks after the trade deadline and try to make the playoffs for whatever chance they were able to get into it. They weren't able to, and now they're out. But I think the Brock Boeser person angle is also something we need to talk about too, because Brock Boeser is such a good guy. Everybody who talks to the guy, everybody who makes articles or interviews with the guy, they always have great things to say about Brock as a person. He's quiet. He's humble, he doesn't like to make a big deal out of himself. Maybe he is Mr. Sensitive in the room, but this is a guy whose demeanor and likability factor is just off the charts A+, especially for folks in a Vancouver hockey environment. He's a good player who can do some great things on the ice, who wasn't really all too consistent as you would hope him to be in order to justify getting that dollar amount that he wanted. But he also was a good guy, and Vancouver losing out on that, who happens to also be the longest tenured Canuck in the system, that's sad. And to also see him get treated in the ways that he was by this management, I do kind of feel bad just how everything went down. At the same time, though, I mean, it makes a lot of sense if Vancouver is like, oh yeah, well, we want to focus on players who can drive their own space on the ice, who can drive their own line, who can make things happen with pace and attacking mindset, rather than a Brock Boeser who's a little bit more cerebral, not as fast, and who needs to get set up by JT Miller 40 times in a year in order to get the goals that he got. Brock can still score a whole bunch of goals. It's just the ceiling of effectiveness that we had seen last year is not attainable without a top-tier center like Miller feeding him the puck. Pettersson could have been that guy, but Pettersson just wasn't really available this season. So, ultimately, this was the worst way for Brock Boeser to leave the Vancouver Canucks, if you wanted to say that, and maybe just the most dissatisfying way for his Canucks career to come to an end, because ultimately, I think we all know that Brock is a very likable guy, very likable dude in the room, in the environment, in the community, and now that doesn't seem to be a part of the Canucks and their future. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the unfortunate story of Brock Boeser and everything else in between. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think he's actually going to stay? Do you think it's possible? Let me know in the comments what do you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. Roll 99. And bye.